All right, welcome to our fourth webinar in our series on instructional coaching. My name is Ildi Lasko-Kerr, and I'm the CEO of Ribbit Learning. And in this quick webinar, we're going to be talking about the importance of instructional coaching, even within the realm and scope of AI or artificial intelligence. You'll notice that I have my automatic transcription on, which is certainly a form of AI that many of us are starting to use. Apologies in advance if any of the typos that are generated as a function of this AI tool are so significant that they are distracting, but hopefully not so significant that they impede your ability to understand and comprehend the information that we're sharing. We're using these AI artificial transcriptions to help make this webinar series more inclusive to all learners. So thank you for joining us today. All right, before we get started, let's do a quick check-in. So feel free to respond in the chat, the city and state that you're living in, and how AI is impacting your current role. So we'll just take about 30 seconds for you to drop in some information into the chat. All right, here is the team that I'm working with here at Ribbit. You can see myself, Robert DeBacco, our Chief Operating Officer, and Adrian Teo, our Chief Technology Officer. We're supported by some amazing educators who are help grounding our work in the important areas that teachers need in rural classrooms today. So this is who is supporting the Ribbit work on our end. Quickly, let's take a look at the learning objective for today's webinar. Our goal really is to start to explore how AI is impacting instructional coaches and the role of instructional coaching and what coaches can do in response to this new technology that's being infused into our schools and then certainly into our work. Just a quick recap on what is effective instructional coaching. So, excuse me, these are the characteristics or activities that an expert instructional coach does with their coachees, and they're research-based and evidence-supported. So, in the type of instructional coaching that has a positive impact on classrooms and students and teachers is very individualized, it is intensive, it is sustained over time, it is focused within the context of that teacher's classroom and focused on the work of implementing particular skills and into their practice. Also, another quick recap. So when we have that type of instructional coaching, we know that it makes a huge difference and that coaching is the intervention for changing teacher practice. So just to recap on the Joyce and Showers study that we presented in the first webinar, that really the only thing that translates teachers' content knowledge and skills into the classroom effectively and consistently is the support of an instructional coach. So obviously AI could be something that can help us expand our instructional coach's capacity to do that work. But at the end of the day, it's that coaching behavior, those 5 activities that a coach does with their coachee that makes a big difference. And how big of a difference can it make? Well, again, on the recap on the benefits of coaching, we know it improves instructional practice, greater than or equal to the difference between a novice and an expert teacher. We know that it incorporates and increases the ability for leaders and teachers to collaborate with one another, use data to inform their decisions and reflect on their practice. We know school culture and working conditions improve as the outcome of effective coaching programs. What that means is that decreases burnout and increases teacher retention. All of that support improves student achievement significantly on standardized achievement tests, and that we see some studies that coaching even decreases discipline rates for Black students when their teachers are coached to engage their students in higher level thinking. So some very positive and strong benefits of coaching on both teachers, schools, and the students that they serve. So also let's take a recap on what makes coaching effective. So we know what coaches do. We know the importance of coaching to get that knowledge into the classroom. We know that that has strong positive effects on students and schools. But what actually makes coaching effective? Well, the research is also clear here that it is that knowledge and skills that that coach brings to the relationship they build with the people that they're coaching. So instructional coaching is really a people business. It is people work. So we need our coaches to really understand how to build strong, positive interpersonal relationships with those that they coach to see those effects happen in the classroom. So, excuse me, let's take a look at some of the roles and responsibilities that instructional coaches have. These are roles and responsibilities that are common in site-based instructional coaches. And at Ribbit, many of our virtual coaches also play similar roles in the schools that they work with at their coachees. But if you have a site-based coaching program, you likely have your instructional coaches working in any one of these areas. Some of these roles and responsibilities certainly lend themselves to being supported by artificial intelligence. Others of them do not. So I'm going to give you a minute to just take a look at the roles and responsibilities that are listed on the screen and consider which of these roles and responsibilities can be supported or enhanced by the use of artificial intelligence. All right, you might be certainly thinking that the data work that coaches do can be supported by AI. That's true, right? There are software and technologies that aggregate and synthesize data and help make meaning of that to decrease that task and the load on instructional coaches and leaders. Depending on the technology, that certainly can access resources and tools that can be shared with the coachees that an instructional coach works with. Uh, Mentoring and coaching support can be delivered through technology and maybe supported by artificial intelligence. The knowledge and deep understanding of curriculum may or may not be supported by artificial intelligence, depending on the technology and the tool. But certainly a focus on instruction and pulling strategies. Actual classroom support is less likely, I think, to be supported by artificial intelligence, depending on the support that's actually being provided. And then the last four really, I think, are incredibly challenging at this point for artificial intelligence to directly support that role of the instructional coach. But certainly artificial intelligence and technology is changing at a very rapid rate, so that may change over time. Right, so let's take a look at what artificial intelligence is. And not to be too cheeky, but we thought that we would actually look to ChatGPT, which is a generative artificial intelligence software that some of you might have experience with, to help us answer some of these questions. So artificial intelligence in the vein of ChatGPT really scours knowledge from the internet and presents it back to us based on cues and prompts that we ask it. So it is actually an incredibly powerful tool for all of us to aid in our work, but especially instructional coaches, because it can increase efficiency and support our work. It's also, as we'll talk about here this morning, something that we need to be cautious and considerate of. But the short answer for what is artificial intelligence is that it is technology that is either programmed or trained using data. So in this case, GPT is trained using all of the data that's on the internet to simulate human cognition. So that's thinking, reasoning, interpreting, and others to perform tasks and to adapt to those current environments as a way to enhance our quality of life. Right, that's the gist of ChatGPT's answer. So I'll leave ChatGPT's more comprehensive answer to what is artificial intelligence on the screen for you to read on your own. All right, so then let's think about what are some of the benefits of artificial intelligence. Depending on your own experience with AI, you might have already seen some of the benefits that we're going to be talking about. If you are new to using AI in your work life, this is something to be considerate of. The reality is you're probably experiencing AI in all sorts of things, whether they're related to your work or not. So think of your Alexa or Google Home tools and technology. If you drive a newer car, there's artificial intelligence built into your car, predictive, think ahead. Text messaging is artificial intelligence. So again, there's lots of places that you're going to see AI in your real life. Whether or not you've introduced it into your work life is another thing. So when I asked ChatGPT, what are the benefits of AI for instructional coaches, it returned quite a long list. But the short answer is that AI can help us scale and enhance our coaches' impacts. So let's take a look at what ChatGPT has shared with us about the other benefits. So again, you can see that the answer that ChatGPT has given us is a pretty prescriptive list of things that it's pulled off of the internet. It's not specific to any particular tool or technology. So whether or not there's a tool or technology that you in your coaching role have access to help reap any of these 7 benefits is unknown. But AI can absolutely help us personalize the support that we are providing to our coachees by tailoring resources, right? So if we ask ChatGPT, for example, for a list of instructional strategies to support classroom engagement for a 3rd grade math teacher, it can pull out information from the internet and synthesize that and give that to a coach, and they can share that with the coachee that they're working with. Depending on the AI technology and your ability to interpret data, it can certainly help provide data insights. Again, it can scale the number of teachers that we are coaching and supporting by having resources that we can send out to more than one teacher at a time. Systems that use AI can certainly continue to learn and adapt the kind of feedback that we provide. So if we as coaches are using some of those systems, the tools that we have access to can help us improve and grow in our own work and our practice. Ultimately, there's a lot of resource and time savings if we utilize AI well, right? So it can help us optimize the tools that we give to teachers, but also help prioritize the information that we give out. There's accessibility tools to help make things easier, like scheduling our coaching calls, transcribing the notes from a coaching session so that we don't have to do it ourselves, and so on. There's also some innovative tools out there that coaches could use to help really facilitate the work that they're doing. But overall, again, the goal of using AI, whichever tools you use, would be to enhance the work that you're already doing, your efficiency and your effectiveness. And when we do that and we're able to scale, we're able to increase the equity in which we support our coachees, but expand access to coaching, which is certainly an equity issue for those coaches or coachees who don't have access to it now. Right. So we know some of the benefits. If you reflect on your own experience, there are your own benefits to using AI. What are some of the challenges? Again, you're likely to also have experienced some challenges with the technologies that you've already used in your either work life or personal life. But when we asked ChatGPT, sort of what are the challenges of instructional coaches using artificial intelligence, the short answer to that is Coaching is an art and a science that's built on relationships, and those relationships aren't easily replicated by AI. So if you think back to the research on effective instructional coaching and all of the tasks and activities that a coach does with their coachee, and the importance of that building relationships and utilizing that knowledge to support educators, you can start to see why AI is not necessarily going to be able to do all of the support that we need it to. So the more comprehensive answer to this question certainly raises some really critical and important things for us to consider, right? So AI, artificial intelligence, again, is either programmed by a human being who has their own knowledge and bias, who's going to influence the ability of that AI in their work to do their work, or it's trained on large sets of data. So that data may have inherently some limitations and bias. So you can see that 1 and 2, those challenges kind of refer to that. Right. So coaching work is very nuanced. The context of schools is incredibly nuanced, and individual student needs are even more nuanced than that. So, AI can be limited in its effectiveness because its inability to really understand that context and the nuance. Certainly, bias that is naturally built in to the data or algorithms themselves perpetuate existing inequalities and disparities between our schools. So that's certainly one thing to consider. And then thinking through how we make this knowledge transparent to others, right? So there is a lot of machine learning and development that goes into any AI software. And so many educators and certainly instructional coaches may lack the understanding, not because they can't comprehend it, but because it is opaque of what it goes into building these AI systems. And sometimes that can certainly undermine the trust that those systems have. There's a whole host of ethical considerations around using artificial intelligence, whether it is something like ChatGPT and who is getting credit or who is being resourced for the knowledge that's being put out there. Data security is a concern, but there's a host of ethical considerations, some of which also go back to contextual understanding and that bias that's kind of built in. Number 5 really focuses back to the point of art and science of coaching, right? The relationship-centered work that a coach engages in with their coachee or the person they coach is really incredibly hard to replicate in artificial intelligence. There's also challenges in just engagement, right? So as coaches, we know that sometimes it's hard enough to just find time to schedule an in-person drop-in, or if you're coaching virtually like our coaches are, to engage your coachee to get coaching sessions scheduled. So even though you have a built-in, relationship with the person you're coaching, sometimes it's still hard to execute that coaching support. So imagine using an AI tool that has no relationship built in with this teacher. The likelihood that that teacher engages independently and on their own with technology as a coaching support diminishes significantly, right? So that human-centered work really leverages our ability to be able to engage with the people that we support. And obviously, one of the biggest challenges to all of us in education around artificial intelligence is that just the speed at which this technology is changing. So our own ability to learn about these new technologies and how we might integrate them into our work is limited by access to professional development or experience. So as we think about some of these major challenges in integrating AI into our work, what we need to really think about is how do we utilize technology as an instructional coach so that it helps make our work more effective, equitable, and ethically sound? And as you grapple with that question, that will lead you to consider the different types of artificial intelligence that you may or may not want to integrate into your own work. Right. So this is, kind of the premise for today's webinar this question, is AI a replacement for coaches? Now, you can tell from the title of this webinar that obviously I think the answer to that is no. That instructional coaches, those real life human beings who deliver that support to the classroom educator or that building leader, are still critically important. So my short answer is obviously no, but ChatGPT also agrees with me. So let's take a look at, when we ask artificial intelligence if it's going to replace the work of instructional coaches, it also says that no, there's no real replacement for that live human being, for many of the same reasons that we've already talked about, right? This human connection is central to the role of coaching and to the ability for teachers to translate what they're learning into their classrooms. So without that human connection, the effectiveness of AI coaching is going to be diminished. There are so many complex problems that we are solving with the educators that we support. Back to those ideas of the nuances and the site-dependent or context-dependent questions that we're dealing with, as well as bringing in the right tools and resources to help answer a teacher's question or need or support them with something they're struggling with. That level of complexity is certainly, really beyond the bounds of really any artificial intelligence that's been programmed currently, or the learning systems, the data that's available for artificial intelligence to learn from. So there's a lot of struggles to get the right answers. It's also why anytime you engage with AI, especially generative AI like ChatGPT, there's a disclaimer that says, check the accuracy of this information, because as we've all probably heard stories either on, in conversations or certainly read on the internet, that, these systems will put out information to you, and without somebody who is a knowledgeable other to interpret that information, we could certainly be sending educators out to do work that is not effective or would not support the students that they're serving. There's a lot of adaptation, as you know, in the role of a coach that we do in order to pivot and adjust based on the work that we're doing. And certainly, that adaptability, pardon me, is a difficult thing for a piece of technology to accomplish, right? That real-time feedback, that jumping from one situation to another and circling back to it, right? That level of complexity and adaptation is hard for a piece of technology to accomplish. I really think that number 4, this idea of professional judgment, is critical. And it's really, I think, woven into the other 3 reasons why instructional coaches, those live human beings, still matter. Because it is one thing to say that, to watch a video and to tell a teacher that they spend 50% of the time talking and students spend 50% of the time talking, and that we should adjust the percent of talk time so that students are talking more. But it's another thing for a coach to look at that same video, a live coach, and then interpret that data and say, well, actually, using my professional judgment, in this case, that teacher was providing direct instruction to their students. And it's important that that teacher is communicating effectively what the students are supposed to know and do, and modeling the skills for them before engaging in a dialogue or discussion. And so while on paper or based on AI analysis, it might look like that we needed to make adjustments to the percentage of talk time in that video, a live coach could actually look at that video, use their professional judgment, understand the complexity of what was going on in their classroom and the nuance of what was being recorded, and actually make a different interpretation and guide and coach that teacher in a different way. That 5th consideration and things to think about, right? So there are back to these ethical considerations. Of course, as individual human beings, we all have our own biases and things that come into our work. Sometimes we recognize them and we're working to undo them and unlearn them, and other times we don't. But the fact that certain biases and inequities are built into the AI technology by design, either by the person who designed them or by the data that it has access to, is certainly a critically important thing. As we think about how do we support teachers of color and educators of color and the inequities that are already built into our systems, the need for instructional coaches are those human beings to really understand what that looks like and work in an equitable way to support educators is critical, and it's something that really human coaches are better equipped to deal with some of those ethical complexities or the situations that are happening in schools. Certainly data privacy, back to that issue of who has access to these data, how are our data going to be continually used to train the artificial intelligence, what decisions does that artificial intelligence make based on the data that it's accessing from our coaching work, raises some important questions that we should really consider. Again, ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence tool, and even it says that AI can augment what an instructional coach can do. AI can certainly help us become more efficient and effective in the coaching work that we do, but it is unlikely, and I would say it's not going to replace the human element of coaching. Just like, in my humble opinion, AI is not going to replace teachers, right? Because of the nature of the critical work that they do to help student learning. So as a complement or a supplement to the work that we do as human beings, there are certainly tools and technologies that we can use to sustain our own work and to decrease our workload. But thinking about it as a replacement, I certainly don't see that happening on the horizon anytime soon, not with the current technologies that we have available to us. All right, so then let's think about what should we do as coaches, right? So we have access to some of these tools. Some of us have access to more tools than others. Excuse me. When we asked ChatGPT, what should coaches do with AI? The short answer is we should assess our own needs first, then identify and leverage any of the tools that exist that we might be able to use to improve our own efficiencies and increase our own capacity, right? And so as you assess your needs and think about what's out there, you get to decide what makes the most sense for you. Again, there's a much longer comprehensive list from ChatGPT. But again, thinking through, why do I need artificial intelligence? Am I looking for something to make the communication that I send to my coachees more efficient? Right? I can certainly ask ChatGPT, send a summary of, these activities to the teacher, or I could, again, ask ChatGPT to pull 5 resources that support a 4th grade special ed teacher in providing intervention support to a student on number sense and probability, whatever that might be, right? So I could ask for support to help make my workload less. That could also obviously personalize the support that I'm giving, but ultimately give me more time to do other tasks. I could use it to reflect and feedback and get feedback on the work that I am already doing. So as I look at all of the information that I'm putting out to teachers, I could have it evaluate the quality of the communication that I'm giving, for example. I could look at my calendar using artificial intelligence to see where I'm spending most of my time and if that's really supporting the teachers or the coaches that I'm working with, for example. I could certainly use artificial intelligence to thoughtfully think about how I can engage my coaching work through a more equity and inclusive lens, right? So thinking through who I have access to coaching and what work I'm already doing, right? Can I make sure that I'm being as inclusive as possible in my own coaching work? And then I can look at the AI tools that I have available to me and determine, do I think that there are biases that the information is giving back to me? And if so, probably choose to use other tools or stop the use of those tools. So you can see there's a lot of strategic ways that we could use AI as instructional coaches to help make our work easier and to support the educators that we want. But the first question we should ask ourselves is, what is it that we need as a coach to help increase our efficiency and the capacity to do more coaching? And then work backwards from that question. And you may or may not realize that you need a AI tool, or you may find that you can't find the AI tool that you really need out in the market. But those are really the starting places to think about, how do you integrate AI into your work. I would also say, just stopping to think about what AI tools are already embedded in the technologies that you already use regularly, right? So there are lots of AI tools that are embedded into most of our calendaring systems, our email systems, that we aren't necessarily utilizing and taking advantage of. And even those things could really help make our work much more efficient. So it doesn't have to be, scouring the internet for new technologies and tools. You may just want to start with the things that you use every day to see how they can help you become more efficient and effective in your work. All right, so I want to give you a chance to stop and think about the integration of AI or artificial intelligence into your work. So you can see there are a few prompts for you to consider. The first you might want to consider is, how did or might AI tools impact your role or your work? You may want to think back about the challenges of AI and which of those challenges concern you the most, and whether that might limit your use of AI. The third is, do you agree or disagree with me and ChatGPT that AI is unlikely to replace instructional coaches, and why do you hold that belief? And then the last thing for you to consider reflecting on is really, again, how can instructional coaches use AI tools to improve their work? So I'll pause just for a quick second and let you think on those questions. If you feel comfortable dropping an answer into the chat, you're invited to do so. You certainly don't have to, though, but go ahead and think about one of those 4 closure and reflection questions. All right, so let's make sure we're sticking to our time limit here. Circle back to our learning objective. So again, the goal for this webinar was to explore how AI is impacting the work of instructional coaches and what we can do in response. And so hopefully you agree that we've had a good overview of the different things that we need to consider as we interpret the ability for AI to support our work and understand the likelihood of that impacting our daily work as instructional coaches. And I think the important, hopefully, takeaway that you leave from this session is that human-centered work of instructional coaching can certainly be improved and enhanced by all kinds of different technologies. But that heart and human work, I don't think, can be replaced by technology anytime soon. All right. So that is really what's we're coming to close for this webinar series. Just wanted to let you know that you can access the recordings, materials, and tools from each of the webinars in the series on our website, on our free resources page. And so you'll see articles that we've been referencing from the very beginning, that first webinar available, as well as tools like needs assessments and other tools to help us shift educator perception of instructional coaching, and then the benefits of using virtual instructional coaching to expand access and impact. So please feel free to use these resources, share them with your friends and colleagues to help support the expanded work of instructional coaches across the country. And last but not least, just as a reminder, Ribbit is here on a mission to support you in your work. So if you are endeavoring to support newer veteran teachers, coaches, or administrators to improve their working conditions, to develop and retain them, which is a critical need, I know, of educators across the country. But ultimately, we know that when we keep educators in our classrooms and develop and sustain them, the quality of teaching increases and student outcomes increase. So, again, we're on that mission with you to support your work. If there's anything that we can do to support you, please feel free to reach out to me. That's my email address, or find us on social media or on our website. But it's been a pleasure chatting with you today. Certainly, if you have any questions, we can pause and answer any questions that you might have. So I'll just pause there and see if there's any questions in the chat. All right, it doesn't look like there are any questions, so thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you at another one of our webinars soon. Thanks and have a great day.